Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. My name is Kevin. I'll be your captain, and you are here with us on Union Federation, and we're very happy to discuss. First of all, this is episode 223. We are discussing Strange New Worlds. Season 3, episode 6, the Sehlat who ate its tail. Yum, yum, yum. Let me bring it back to slideshow here. Sorry about that. Strange New Worlds. But first of all, let's go ahead and introduce our guest here. Of course, we're here on the Union Federation podcast and the BQN. With us, of course, is the BQN founder and counselor. Let's welcome Miss Amy Nelson. What's going on?
Well, hello. What a warm welcome.
Good to have you back. Good to have you back.
Yeah.
We missed you, but there was a good reason. We'll get into that in a minute here. So, yeah. Just a reminder to this Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN, where you can, of course, find Union Federation and hit that QR code there if you're watching the video. It'll take us to our website. We appreciate the support there. We are discussing season 3 here of Strange New Worlds. We got 10 episodes, and it's nice to know all the names of the episodes going into this. But we can't go any further without me introducing my the one that shares my brain a lot, my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, weapon analyst, and also cleaner of the P corner. That is Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's going on, sir?
You cut off the connection between our brains, and that prevented me from eating my tail. So I thank you.
You're welcome. Well, welcome to the show, guys. We've been having a lot of fun discussing Star Trek Strange New Worlds here, and we've had some fun stuff on the Union Federation program as well. And of course, last year we had a lot of fun with some great shows. We had every 2-part episode of Star Trek Next Generation. We had a lot of fun discussing that. We also recently discussed Star Trek Lower Deck Season 5, the final season. And we have one note we're going to be bringing up about that shortly. We also did our breakdown of the Star Trek movie Section 31. And more recently, we also returned to the Orville, where we did an episode of the crew profile episode on each of the main cast members, including the last episode. We discussed all the great guest stars and Star Trek alumni. As mentioned, we are in the middle of our Star Trek Strange New Worlds watch, and we have some previous episodes. Make sure you check those out, going all the way back to episode 1 with the 2-parter. And last week, we talked about Through the Lens of Time. But this week, we are talking about the new episode, episode 6, the Sehlat who ate its tail. Am I saying that right, Amy?
Yeah.
Sehlat?
That's
okay.
how I remember hearing it said when Spock said it.
I'm having hedge money nightmares right now. I'm just saying.
So yeah, send all the, hate comments to me. She doesn't know what she's talking about, but no, I really, Sehlat.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's fine. Okay. So this is episode 223 of Union Federation, but we've got some Star Trek news. Let's get into that right now. So the first thing we have to talk about, Amy, is the reason why you've been a little busy in a way is you went to STLV, Trek to Vegas. It was August 6th through the 10th, 2025. You're listening to this later at the Real Las Vegas in Las Vegas, Nevada. And before we get into your adventures there, Amy, they had a very impressive reunion of celebrating 30 years of Voyager. The whole cast was there of the main ship crew member. Tell us about that. What did you hear about that?
Yeah, that was very momentous because Robbie Duncan McNeil usually always cancels because he's working, and same with Roxanne Dawson. They're always working. They're directors. So, and Jerry Ryan doesn't come much anymore. So to have all of them there was just spectacular, and they had photo ops galore. Like they had the women of Voyager, so it was Kate and Roxanne and Jerry. The full cast, individuals, it just was very well done.
That's great.
And kudos to Creation for making that happen.
I noticed they had a little some actors from Picard show up. He even had some Star Wars people show up as well there with the Creation. So yeah.
Yes, and BSG, they had Mary
wow.
McDonald and James Olmos Edwards.
Oh, that is so cool. That is really cool.
Yeah, and was Katie
Sackhoff?
Sackhoff. Yeah,
Wow.
I think she came for one day.
That's so cool. I'm glad that they're showcasing other sci-fi stars as well at an event like this. I think that's very, very smart. So, but
Yeah.
Amy, you had some adventures here, including wearing. Tell us tell the listeners of what we're showing here on the YouTube channel.
So I have a longtime Star Trek friend. His name is Ken. I podcast with him way back in my Trek FM days. And he purchased from auction a screen used uniform from the motion picture.
Wow.
And so there's a certificate of authentication bought at one of those, auction things. And he was like, this is just sitting in my closet. It needs to be worn. Will you please wear this at STLV this year? And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, the honor would be mine. So here I was walking around Saturday, which is the big cosplay day. And I was getting stopped left and right. I went into the Roddenberry collection and they had a display of all the uniforms from the motion picture.
That is
and
so
so
cool.
I'm walking around and I'm looking at the uniform that I am wearing. It was just so surreal.
Now, the uniform itself, is it a regular kind of crew member on the Enterprise exactly? Do you know?
Yeah, it's just a background character. There's no one famous that we would know that wore it.
You're kind of famous, so you kind of bring that to the table there. So yeah, that's a sharp looking uniform. You look great in it. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, and that didn't have to be altered or anything. I couldn't even believe it fit. But I mean, I walked in and the Roddenberry people were like, oh my, what is this? Did you make this? And I told him, I said, well, it's screen used. And they instantly knew that something was different about this. So
I just one comment I wanted to make. I'm going to cross the streams here a little bit. So I host another podcast here on the network called Hair Metal Podcast. We talk about all 80s, rock and roll metal. And I was just excited to find out that former Kiss guitarist Bruce Kulick is a huge Star Trek fan, and he posted pictures of himself at this event. I thought that was really, really cool. Plus, they have the Kiss store or something like that going at the Rio, right?
Yeah,
they still have They still have the mini golf area. That's great. Yeah. I remember playing in there once. It was great. So tell us, what were some of your favorite memories going there? And I did pick a few other pictures here of you and some friends and stuff. So
yeah, just because I was actually working. So the only day I actually went to the convention was that Saturday, which is the busiest and
right.
I mean, best of all the days. So I got to see a panel with LeVar Burton and his daughter, Mika Burton. And that was the first time that they had ever done a panel together. So that was sort of fun to witness that.
She was in an episode, right? Of, was it?
Picard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And surprise, surprise. Unfortunately, Cole Meany had to cancel and somehow they got Scott Bakula. This was his first convention in decades. And he said that he was going to come next year because next year, although it is the 60th, but it's the 20th of Enterprise.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I feel old now.
if Scott Bakula is coming, what if Jolene Blaylock would come? Then that would be everyone.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool.
Because everyone else comes every year. So
that's really cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Is there
those were some really big, actor moments and that I got to see and hear about.
Any one last thing you want to share with it?
Gosh, they had the rooftop bar party. That was fun. And then of course Masquerade and the lobby bar was at the lobby bar, they had Paul Wesley has his own bourbon. It's called
Wait a minute.
Brothers.
Was this where he's like serving up drinks with
Yes.
Was it Christina Chong? I think it was.
And Ethan Peck.
Wow.
And so I'm sitting at the Lapa Lounge and here they come walking in and start making drinks and passing them out and doing a whole show. That was pretty darn amazing.
That is very cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I can't believe you almost forgot to not tell that story.
But
Well, yeah,
again, that was outside of the convention, you know? So that's why it's really, really a good idea to stay at the Rio because things like that just happen.
is it returning to the Rio next year?
It is. Yes.
Cool. That's cool. That's good. That's good to hear. I have so not only just you, but I have some other friends that go there all the time, and it's tempting to go. I gotta look into that in the near future because that looks like a fun event. It really does.
Yeah.
So, Well, we have one other bit of Star Trek news. It's kind of important. So, guess what? Star Trek Lower Decks wins 2 Hugo Awards. The first franchise wins since Star Trek The Next Generation finale episode. And I got an article here by trekmovie.com. It says, we said goodbye to Star Trek Lower Decks on Paramount Plus last December, but the legacy of the adult animated series lives on. Lower Decks was a big winner this weekend at the Hugo Awards. The World Science Fiction Society has been honoring the best in science fiction and fantasy with the Hugo Award since 1953. And on Saturday, the Lower Decks TV series went into the gala event at the World Science Fiction Convention, WorldCon in Seattle, with 2 nominations in the category of Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form. The season 5 episodes Fissure Quest, written by Lauren McGuire and directed by Brandon Williams, and the series finale, The New Next Generation, written by series creator and showrunner Mike McMahon and directed by Megan Lloyd, were both nominated, competing against episodes of Fallout, Agatha All Along, and Doctor Who. In the end, Lower Decks won for the series finale. Series creator Mike McMahon accepted the award via video, as captured by Locus Magazine on social media. And I have a picture of that here, right here. I'm sharing that here. And Locus Magazine does a lot of, it covers a lot of this here, and he went on there and accepted. So I thought that was really, really cool. That I want to kind of get you guys' thoughts on the Hugo Award. First win for Star Trek since Star Trek TNG's last episode. Amy.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, all good things. I did not really know that or remember that bit of trivia that All Good Things won a Hugo Award. So that's pretty darn awesome. And of course, Lower Decks, 2 nominations. That's pretty strong.
It is. I'm not surprised by this, Kyle. Are you?
Not at all. I mean, if anybody's going to bring an award back to Star Trek, it's going to be the Lower Decks crew. Come on now. This is great because I know how I remember when we started watching Lower Decks, there were so many people kind of torn on it, but it's been so good and so well accepted now. And to see it get this well-deserved recognition just justifies everything that they did with Lower Decks. And it's just awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really happy for them. And again, just a reminder for those of you that are physical media collectors, Star Trek Lower Decks complete series on Blu-ray with 2 steel books, and there's also a cool little picture in there as well that comes with it. But I highly recommend this. You can still get this off Amazon. It's probably on eBay as well. It's a beautiful collection of the entire set of the entire series for Star Trek Lower Decks. So congratulations, Mike McMahon and Lower Decks, everyone involved with that. That is a huge, huge deal. So, well, guys, what do you say that we get into the first away mission? Okay, guys, we are discussing, this is, first of all, Union Federation, episode 223. We're discussing season 3, episode 6 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. The Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail. And, of course, we did want to remind you guys, spoiler alert! Sorry about that little bug in the thing there. Spoiler alert for you have not seen it yet, or heard it or whatever. But I'm sure you're listening to this, you've already seen it. But just in case, let's go ahead and hit the Admiral's Log episode synopsis. Amy, will you go ahead and start us off with, of course, the episode "The Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail"?
So the USS Farragut is attacked by a large scavenger ship, and much of the crew is injured, including Captain Varel. The Enterprise arrives to help with Spock, Chapel, Scotty, and Communications Officer Uhura joining acting Captain James T. Kirk as his temporary command crew. The Enterprise is captured by the scavengers, and the Farragut pursues them. The scavenger ship begins draining the Enterprise's power and cuts off communications. The crew used wired phones from the 20th century and manual controls to get around this, while Pike and Lon disconnect them from the scavenger ship and kill some of the scavengers. Kirk struggles with the pressure of command, but with support from the others, he devises a plan to trick the scavengers into temporarily disabling their own ship. As the Enterprise escapes, the Farragut fires into the scavenger ship and destroys it. Both crews are shocked to discover that the scavengers are humans, the descendants of 21st century scientists who left Earth in the aftermath of World War III. Kirk is haunted by his command decision and receives advice from Pike.
There we go. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get our first reactions to this episode. And let's start with you, Amy. What did you think of this episode? We get to learn a little bit more about Kirk.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I am in love with this episode. It felt like a movie. I was engrossed. It was visually beautiful. The edit, I felt, was seamless. It was going from scene to plot point that just was, I was just engaged. And to have and know that this is where we're seeing acting Captain Kirk, like that is very exciting. So we're getting this beautiful backstory of our beloved Captain Kirk. And it just, and then the funness of Pelia and her telephones. And, you know, it just has, and then like this wonderful original series feel of, oh, it's really the 21st century and this is humanity. And oh, here's the flag. Like, how many times have we seen that? So this is a fabulous, great episode.
Didn't we get that in a TNG episode with the what was it, the Royale?
Yeah.
Something, and there was a U.S. It was like a U.S. ship or something, and I remember that was like season 1, I think. Am I remembering right?
Yeah, that's the Royale, and then there's the other one with like the cryogenics that they find
That's right,
the cryo people, you know.
That's right.
So there's a lot going back to this, you know, time period.
That's sure. Kyle, what are your first reactions to this episode?
Well, I echo Amy's thoughts, and honestly, in my opinion, I think this is the best and most complete episode of television for Strange New Worlds this season at this point. I think this episode had a bit of everything in it that Strange New Worlds excels at, from having its fun moments to having its place in respecting the history of Trek to having these heavy emotional moments weigh on the crew. This episode had a bit of everything for everybody, and also to have it be Kirk's first command and how they handled it. And I'm just going to say right now, real props to Paul Wesley in this episode. He was fantastic as Kirk in this episode, going from I am bored out of my mind to being named captain, being completely unsure of himself, and then kicking into the Kirk we all know and love. And I think this episode was just so well balanced and well done. It's the best episode and the most complete episode of Strange New Worlds for this season.
Are you sure this was the best Kirk he was? Because he did a pretty good job with the adventure show one, you know, the USS Adventure.
Oh, that's the best.
I'm just saying,
Kirk.
you know, that was a pretty good one there, too. But no, joking aside, though, yeah, Wesley was great in this, and it was a good bottle episode, and we're going to touch on that a little bit later because I think that's been very important for this episodic way that they are doing the Star Trek Strange New World episodes. And that's something that I think that, you know, we've missed a little bit with previous Star Treks, or as we call the new Trek, of having these episodic ones with, you know, some stuff that, you know, that's happening in all the episodes, these threads that still continue, but that you can do something like this and then tell one of the most famous stories of how one of the most famous captains actually gets his first command temporarily. I was just thinking in the back of my head, though, I feel like we've heard the USS Farragut so many times. I feel like it's a ship that's been captured and destroyed or rescued people. Because wasn't it the Farragut that also rescued the people off, was it Star Trek Generations after Troy crashed the ship? And it was USS Farragut that came down to get everybody. I feel like
I thought Well, remember in Star Trek '09 when Uhura was
Mhm.
stationed to the USS Farragut? Was I not the best person? And da da da
Yeah.
da in linguistics, I need to be reported to the USS Enterprise. And then Spock is like, "Oh yes, I see that." So there's that scene.
Yeah, it feels like the Farragut's like almost as famous as the Enterprise because it's always being talked about, or I served on it, or whatever. So I
Yeah,
just thought
and
that was kind
wasn't
of
it
funny.
Riker that served on the Farragut before?
Yeah, I think so.
I
Yeah.
think,
Did the
or
Farragut get
that was his
destroyed in
first
Wolf?
command, something
Did it
like
get
that.
destroyed in Wolf 359 with the Borg too? I don't know. I feel like it's one of those
Probably.
ships that keeps getting rebuilt and new captains and stuff like that.
Yes.
Does this ring a bell with you at all, Kyle?
I know I've heard the Farragut multiple times in Star Trek. It feels like it's we need another ship. Somebody bring in the Farragut right now, please. Get it out of space dock. I feel like it had to have been mentioned in lower decks at some point too.
Yeah, I did. I probably could have like wikied that or like Star Trek wikied that, but it just came to my brain right now. Well, something I did do for Memory Alpha, and we have to bring it to the table before we continue, is talking about Vulcan pets here. The Sehlat is a Vulcan predator beast that can also be domesticated, and I found this at Memory Alpha Fandom.com. Spock had one as a childhood pet. And if you're watching the video, I got some stills up there. And Amy, you told me before we started recording that the animated pictures I have up here actually are from the animated series. And you remember this, I guess, because I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, and I mean, spoilers, but his little doggy dies and sacrifices itself to save Spock. So,
Well,
and this is the memory that he shares with Burnham. When Burnham has that mind,
that's
like,
right. Okay. That makes
and
sense because I saw some screenshots that seemed kind of blurry that must have been from that mind meld screenshot. And I'm like,
yes.
what is that
So
from? So yeah, because I thought it's not from Star Trek '09 because I don't remember them having that when he was a kid there. So yeah.
right. So that's
Yeah.
the tie-in to the animated series in Discovery. That's the deep
Well,
cut.
according to Memory Alpha here, it says the Sehlat was a giant, quote, teddy bear-like quadrupedal animal native to Vulcan. Slots had 6-inch fangs and did not like to climb, preferring instead to remain on low ground. Slots were patient, persistent predators that were capable of tracking their prey for days at least. Domesticated slots were only slightly smaller than wild ones, were a popular pet with Vulcan children. Slots, however, were very aggressive, so Vulcan children learned early never to be late with their dinner. Vulcans had a saying, quote, the Sehlat who ate its tail, which was comparable to the human saying about the dog catching the car, not knowing what to do with it. Of course, that was brought up in this episode, but I thought we'd bring that to the table and talk about the Sehlat because since that is the name of the episode pretty much, it's just like, okay, what does this look like? Because I couldn't remember it ever being mentioned. And then I Google it and I'm like, oh yeah, it's all over the place. So there you go. I don't know, the animated one looks so cute. Look at it.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and move on here. We got some stuff to talk about on some Star Trek trivia. Go ahead and go back to forth here. Why don't you go ahead and start with our first one here, Amy?
Yeah, this is again why this is an excellent episode, because once La'an beams back to the Enterprise, the officers left right there are the ones with Commander Kirk are all part of his crew in the future.
You think that was done on purpose? I think
Huh.
so. I think that's great because it starts some familiarity with these crew members. And I think one of the most important scenes that we see in this episode is where Kirk comes back after kind of taking a little sabbatical and freaking out a little bit. And he talks to Spock is how he needs their help. And that, and then Scotty says, I needed to hear that or something like that. I can't remember exactly what he says, Amy.
Yeah, and now we are actually witnessing why they are going to be so close, because Kirk is at his vulnerable, his weakest moment, and they see him come back, and so that's when the trust starts.
Yeah, really good scene there. Kyle, why don't you go ahead and hit us with number 2 here? We might have an immortal on our hands.
Yeah, or I need a certain brand of Ben and Jerry's for this trivia too. But in the episode, Pelia claims to be approximately 5,000 years old and was a roadie for the Grateful Dead. Commander Pelia confirms she's at least 5,000 years old, and when Pelia is digging through a chest searching for old telephones, she hands Dr. Mbega an Atari 2600 with wireless joysticks. That's a little old school there.
So if you're watching the video here, I have a picture of Pelia talking on her pink old school phone, and I got a picture of the Grateful Dead that I did here, and there's a woman there. I don't know who that is. Might be maybe one of the either musicians or maybe one of the, I don't know, people that one of them married to. But I'm like, is that Pelia? Now I'm thinking it might be. Someone with more Grateful Dead knowledge will probably know that more than I do. All right, here's some interesting trivia here. I'll go ahead and get this next one here. This is fun. Right after transporting onto the USS Farragut, Scotty says, "What in Baird's name happened?" Chappell asked who he's talking about, with Scotty replying, "The Scottish inventor everyone knows, John Logie Baird." John Baird lived from 1888 to 1946, was the inventor and electrical engineer from Helensburgh, Scotland. Baird is noted for inventing the television and making major contributions to the development of wireless signals. On January 26, 1926, he demonstrated the first ever mechanical television set he built from household supplies like an old hat box, a pair of scissors, some darning needles, a few bicycle light lenses, a used tea set, and sealing wax and glue. So we have this gentleman to thank for television and streaming Star Trek.
Hey, Kevin, we got a regular Culture Clash member joining the chat.
Oh, Chris, our Ghostbusters Quick Response Unit is checking in. Greetings, programs. What's going on, Chris? Good to see you, man. That's awesome. So, so guys, your television, you can thank this Scottish guy here. Just got to say, that's pretty cool. So,
yeah, that's a fun reference that they threw in. Good job, writers.
Next time I go to Scotland, I got to look up. Maybe he's got they probably have this somewhere in a museum. I assume they have to, have Baird somewhere.
Yeah, in their science museum.
Yeah, I need to give him some love there. So, Amy, why don't you go ahead and hit us with trivia number 4 there?
Yeah, so the plot of this episode shares some similarities with Diane Duane's 1997 TNG novel, Intellivore?
Intellivore.
Intellivore, yes.
Okay, Intellivore. Set in 2371, shortly after the events of All Good Things. Several colonies and vessels have disappeared near the edge of the Great Rift, an area beyond the outer edges of Federation space that encompasses the space between the Sagittarius and Orion arms of the galaxy. The region is called the Great Rift because there are very few stars and even fewer star systems in the voids between the galactic arms. There are also numerous legends about lost civilizations and ancient monsters that prey on anyone who dares enter this dark region of space.
Yeah. So, by the way, Chris says, love this episode after it sunk in a little. I'm going to tell you, I liked it more the second time I watched it too, because I had to kind of really let it kind of soak in a little bit. So there you go. All right. This was a favorite of mine in this trivia here, guys. So check this out. Pike and Lon extract baryon particles from the Enterprise engineering section, which are a natural byproduct of warp travel. The most famous from the deadly baryon sweep in Starship Mine from Star Trek Next Generation. This was the Die Hard on the Enterprise episode, if you remember correctly. Tim Russ also played one of the bad guys trying to steal the ship or whatever they're trying to do. And there was that baryon sweep that kept coming closer to 10 forward, closer. And Picard got very used to the Jeffries tubes in that episode. And he got to the very end of 10 forward. He's like, make it stop.
And that's where Data is practicing is small talk.
Yes. Chris says, I was choked up a little seeing Scotty stuck up a Jeffries tube.
Oh.
All right. Okay, guys. Well, let's go ahead and get into the next away mission here, guys. We're going to get into the main discussion here of episode 223 of Union Federation, discussing the Sehlat who ate its tail, Star Trek Strange New World season 3 episode 6. And we've got some main episode discussion with our mission reports, and we got a few to talk about for this particular episode. And the first one I wanted to bring to the table here, guys, and I want to give a shout out to as well. We hit Memory Alpha Fandom here with some cool stuff. So, but the first thing I want to ask you is Kirk's first command. Thoughts on how it unfolded. And I thought this was kind of funny that rousing speeches aren't exactly my forte, Kirk says. And then the writer of this article said, to which, yet, Amy, he learns rousing speeches a little bit later on. But how do you think they handled the first command chair mission that we get here with Kirk?
His adventure, his arc that he went through this episode was just a lesson in humility, but also in leadership. And because everyone who, is second in command or whatever, you have to have that confidence that you can do the job and that you can do it better. Because why else would you be wanting to be captain? Like you feel. And so we have him where he's like, I feel like I could do this and and he's got that confidence. And then, thank goodness there was no one on that planet, for that away mission. And so then it was like, oh man, I thought that I could do this. And then he loses his engines and gets stuck in the path. And he's really having this doubt of confidence, as was said. And so we see him winging it. We see him thinking, we see him frozen. He is just going through all of these things and finally listens and gets a plan, gets everyone's support, right? And so his arc this episode was so perfect and it hit on so many important characteristics that leaders should have. If I was in university, I would be using this to highlight leadership.
That's a good point. Kyle, your thoughts on Kirk's first command? How'd you like? How did they handle it?
I think they handled it absolutely beautiful for a couple of aspects. One, Kirk's first command is one of the craziest things that ever has happened in the Federation. This ship out of nowhere that looks like a creature and is just scavengers. And what I loved about it too was we see the confident Kirk right out of the gate in the episode, and he's ready, he's raring to go. Things go crazy, and he's second guessing himself because of the outcome. And you see, I love the fact that you go through that emotional thing as Amy was talking about, because it's important. Because if we see Kirk just being Kirk right out of the gate, it takes away. It just doesn't seem right. And one of the best things about it, and you guys talked a little bit earlier in the trivia, how this episode starts building those relationships, especially the Kirk-Spock relationship and the trust between the two of them. I think that was absolutely huge in this episode. And again, to see Kirk get himself back together, and we start seeing that Kirk that we know and we respect, one who is out to look out for his people, but he's still going to take chances to get the mission done and do what he needs to do. And driven, and just, I love that, when he's talking to everybody, oh yeah, Scotty, this is a part of the plan you're not going to like, or in Chapel as well. Well, but he's so, he's got their exuberance and he's pulled them in with his charisma and just making them feel, they're all in this together. And I think it was just handled so beautifully. I think it was the highlight of the episode, truthfully.
Good points, Kyle. Chris in the chat says, we see him beating the no-win scenario, which kind of makes me think okay, so he's getting used to this, because obviously he defeated the Kobayashi Maru. And he was able to kind of carry that all on this one. But what I thought was interesting was you get his take on Vulcans right away. First of all, his Vulcan commander is very conservative and very anti-risk, and he says, well, that's what this is about. It's about taking risk, and I love how he says right in the beginning how bored he is. I think that's kind of funny. And I then you get later on where he's kind of, freaking out. We'll call it the Kirk freak out, not as bad as P. Diddy's, but it's a Kirk freak out, so and he's talking to Spock, and this is where we're getting a nice little relationship starting between him and Spock, confiding in each other, starting this friendship bond, which I think is very important that this episode did. And I thought the chemistry between those two during the chess scene, where they end up taking that, that tradition a little bit further over there. So I thought I liked how we had that moment with Chapel going, well, I could order him, not, worthy of taking the chair, because of the medical freakout situation. But I thought that was interesting that was brought up. But then he comes back around and he basically says, I need your guys' help. And he gives them the confidence that they needed. And I thought it was a good turnaround. So it was done well. I like that. Okay. The next mission report we got to talk about here, guys, is we got to talk about Pelia here. In the episode, she claims to be approximately 5,000 years old. Pelia is a lanthanite, a newly introduced species in the series of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Lanthanites are a long-lived humanoid race that can pass for human and have lived among humans for a long time without being detected, according to IMDb anyway. Pelia is the Enterprise's chief engineer, is the first lanthanite seen in Star Trek. And I went to Memory Alpha to get a little more information. It said that she was born in the 28th century BC and claimed to have lived through the entirety of human history. She further claimed to have been a contemporary of Pythagoras. Pythagoras. Thank you, Amy. God, why are all these words so hard to say sometimes? And that was mentioned in this episode. And during the 20th century, she also said that she knew Cary Grant. It was once a roadie for Grateful Dead. And that she ran in the 21st century, she ran an antique and curio shop in Vermont called the Archaeology Department. In 2022, she was visited by Laan Noonien Singh and James T. Kirk, who had time traveled from two alternate versions in 2259. They were seeking a way to detect a cold fusion reactor in Toronto. Pelia gave them a 1980s diver's wristwatch containing phosphor that glowed in the presence of tritinium and byproduct of the reactor, and that was in the Tomorrow episode. She survived World War III, witnessed the launch of a ship that carried the best of humanity in search of a new world between the end of the war, the first contact with the Vulcans. So she's been around for a long time. She was friends with Amanda Grayson, who was once one of the first humans that she revealed her Atlantean heritage to in the episode The Broken Circle. Okay, so I have a little issue with this, but then I think it's really cool. What I like about it that it's really cool is that it's touching on someone who's been around for a long time. And being a Highlander fan and being a Highlander podcast host on this network, there is a immortal known as Mythos who is known to have lived 5,000 years, to where, he had to live with a lot of burden. He couldn't remember a lot of stuff that he used to do. Because he's 5,000 years old. Think about it. Think about how old we are right now and the shit we can't remember, So I think that's really cool, but I have a little issue with introducing someone like that in this TV series has never been mentioned before. I get wanting to introduce a new alien type of species in a show. I get that. But I feel like this could have ramifications. There has to be more to this to make me feel like, okay, this is okay to say someone that is this old. Having a room full of really cool stuff I thought was great. But I don't know. There was just something didn't quite sit with me of introducing a species that's been around that long and us not knowing about it. Of course, that's part of the reason that makes her cool is that she's been able to stay underneath the radar. Amy, what do you think? Okay, let's go to Kyle first there. Sorry.
So what I think is so interesting about this is you have to factor in with the character being 5,000 years old, and the fact of the actress playing the character, Carol Kane. She can only do so much at her age, and so she's not been, since her introduction, she's not been in every episode. We haven't had too many centric episodes with her. And I think there's still a lot of mystery with her. And I think for a lot of us, we haven't gotten a full feel for Pelia yet. Obviously, she has a lot of, she's incredibly knowledgeable. She has a lot of history. She's had influence on a lot of the crew at some point, whether it's on the ship or previously. Chris brought up about her relationship with Scotty.
Yeah.
I think what's more interesting about this, Kevin, and why maybe you feel a little bit the way you do, is because the fact that this is the first time we're being introduced to this particular type of alien. The closest thing we probably had to this would be Guinan.
Yeah, and El-Lorians, right?
Yeah, the El-Lorians.
Right. Yeah.
But the aspect of we have this near immortal alien and we've never heard of them before until Strange New Worlds. And it feels like this is a type of species that we should have known about beforehand from some kind of other Star Trek thing.
Wouldn't have Q sniffed that out? I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, and I think that's it though. If she wasn't 5,000 years old, we would probably feel like okay, but she's 5,000 years old and these aliens have a huge lifespan. How have we not heard them mentioned in something in Trek beforehand? And I think that, and to have her be a part of Starfleet, and that, I think that's just kind of it's one of those things that because of the nature of the show and the time frame and things that they develop, it's just kind of one of those things that they kind of keyhole themselves into. But it's still a very interesting character and a very fun character.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, Amy. I love this character, and I love Carol Kane. She's great in this, and I love seeing. I would love to just hang out in her quarters and just go through all of her, all of her things and stuff. It'd be fun to see what else she has. But what about you? What do you think?
Well, I absolutely understand what you're saying. And I'm like, yeah, you are right. It is pretty weird to be bringing this up. That's crazy. But then I think right now suffers because we have this amazing universe behind us. Whereas this is exactly what Next Generation did. Brought in Guinan. Second season. So what, so just like Pelia. And and then she's living in the 1900s, 1800s with Mark Twain, and then said nothing about Kirk and Spock. What? So we're getting the same thing. It's just TNG only had to dispute one show, where Strange New Worlds has 7 shows, 8 shows, 9 shows ahead of it.
Also, too, by the way, Chris brings up an interesting point in the chat. He says, I'm also under the impression that your species is rare. So that would kind of be a little more interesting that, first of all, them being around, is that long is rare, but also the species themselves is rare. Kyle, did you have another thought?
Just in this, I just wanted to echo what Chris was saying. I mean, that is one of the aspects, even with Guinan's character. The species is rare, and Amy it's another great point of talking about Guinan. You only have the original series at the time and some movies. This is again, it's what I said earlier. Strange New Worlds has so much history behind it now, and where it's falling in its place in history. That's why I think there's this wait a minute feel to it, and it's not intentional. It's just the situation they're in.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny though that they were communicating using these phones. Although I'm trying to figure out why Mbega was in engineering. Why he was
Mbega can do anything.
I guess, yeah. But that was definitely entertaining to see them busting open the old phones. So. Okay, guys, the next mission report I have here is the Destroyer of Worlds ship here. It's a very scary design and could be right at home in an episode of the original series. They're reminiscent of the pack-led clump ships from Star Trek Lower Decks in the way they capture and incorporate species and other ships to their design. And then, of course, we learned the origin of this particular Destroyer of Worlds ship, that it's human. And we find that the invaders were human themselves. I want to kind of get your thoughts on this reveal and the idea of these kind of clump-looking ships. I was getting kind of a what was the alien ships in Avengers that came through the portal, Kyle?
I know. Yeah, I know exactly what one.
Itari, I think. I was kind of getting that vibe. Or that Romulan, really spiky-looking ship from Star Trek 2009. It had all the little spikes coming out of it and stuff.
I'll give you another one. this ship looks like it could have come right out of some of the oddball ships we saw in Farscape.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So, well, Kyle, what are your thoughts on Destroyer Worlds and how this subplot played out?
I think the ship design is so crazy it works. It looks like a monster. And I think that is one of the things that makes it so unique, is almost looks like a living being in certain aspects. It's basically got teeth. You look at the insides and how it looked on the inside. You felt like, am I in a living thing here or something? But then as we learn more and we find out it's humanity, and it's these people who went out years and years and years ago. And I think one of the most interesting things, and I really hope this is something that maybe they come back to at some point with this, I would love to know the story of how they became this, because I think that's a really interesting story, because it felt like, Kevin, we've had this happen in a lot in science fiction where, the human ship gets lost in space, they lose their humanity, they almost devolve and become something else entirely. And that was the thing. Even though they have like all these scavenger things and how the ship looks and stuff like that, they didn't act like they were crazy devolved humans. And to get that discovery and figure out what they are, and to see the impact it had on Kirk especially, was so powerful and so well done. And I think they handled it really well. But I would love to see an episode, or even a little side Trek short or something that gives a little bit more history of what happened to these people, because I found it fascinating.
Amy, Kyle brings up a good point there. And Chris said, I was afraid that they were Borg at first. So happy that they weren't, that we got something else out of this. But Kyle brings up an interesting thing. It makes you wanting to know more about these people and what happened here. What are your thoughts on how this Destroyer of Worlds ship revealed itself?
Yeah, I thought the reveal, when I first saw it, I really thought of the Nemesis Scimitar.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I also thought of Discovery Season 1, Barge of the Dead, and just the size and the massivity of it all, and all the crooks and crannies. And so I had those two remembrances when I saw it. But I can sort of see, what did they say? How many survivors were there? Around 5,000, was it?
7,000.
I think so, yeah.
7,000, yeah. And I can see a population, and however many years it has been, but some breaking off and getting their own ship and doing their own thing. And they're going to be, we need to have power, and we're going to find this specific thing, and everyone else be damned. Like, I unfortunately can see some of humanity doing that. This is not all of humanity, I don't believe, but so it's a tough pill to swallow, and I can see how it's done. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
But it's, and it is a good cautionary tale to us, but how they use it to define and help Kirk. Yeah, that was chef's kiss with how they managed that.
That's a great point with that, Amy. And it is a cautionary tale. And that reveal in the episode where Pike pulls off the helmet and you see the face of the human, and you're like, whoa, it's like, geez, it's not this like crazy alien looking character that we were expecting, so that was definitely a nice touch. Well, those are our three main mission reports. So we do have an option if you guys wanted to bring something else to the table for a fourth one here. And I just want to mention real quick, the one that I wanted to bring up is and I got this off trekmovie.com on the recap here. It's the double bottle show reveals action and character depth, doing what good prequel should do. This is just the kind of Star Trek Strange New World should deliver mid-season. With 2 strong episodes in a row, things are humming along nicely for the series, and as it heads into the back half of this season here. And I want to kind of get you guys' thoughts on this, because this was a nice bottle episode. We got some great reveals, of course, with Kirk's first command, a little foreshadowing of what his crew is going to do here. And I love this shot here of Scotty kind of laughing. I don't know if this shot was taken in between takes or if this was from the episode. And someone did a caption with Scotty saying, "That's hilarious. All three of us will serve under Captain Kirk on the Enterprise." That was kind of funny. But bottle episodes are very important to episodic television, where you don't have to have this underlining theme to pay attention to what happened before and after. And also it's a cost-cutting trick as well. You stay on board your main sets here. You don't do any outside traveling to, stuff like that. And you have a wonderful effects and, writing and all that kind of stuff to really kind of just spend time on the characters themselves with some great character development. Want to get you guys' thoughts on that, or anything else you want to bring to the table? Kyle.
As far as the bottle episodes go, this is why Strange New Worlds has worked from the get-go. For the most part, it's self-contained episodes. Yes, there's some storylines running through them, but the fact that each episode is a weekly episodic television, which we don't have a lot of anymore. And again, It's why Strange New Worlds works so well. It's not forcing you to go, I have to see every episode of this season to completely understand what's going on. You can hop in if you miss an episode or you're playing catch up. And I think, it's why Strange New Worlds is, I think, one of the reasons why it's so successful. I do want to go back, though, just real quick to when we were having the discussion about the scavengers.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the themes of this week's episode kind of underscored is human survival instinct. We see what happens with the scavengers because they have no choice if they're going to survive. Human survival instinct is kind of genetically embedded into all of us. And we even see it with Kirk and the crew when Kirk makes a decision, because his instinct is to protect the Enterprise and his crew, and he does what he has to do to make them survive, not realizing that they were humans at the time, and then dealing with the ramifications of that. But how powerful that survival instinct is and what it can drive us to if we are in no other position and we're just trying to survive.
Like you said, Amy, it's a cautionary tale. Did you have any thoughts on the bottle episode or anything else you want to bring to the table?
I hadn't really thought that much that this was a bottle episode, I guess, because they were on two different ships. So I usually associate it with just one ship. But yeah, that totally makes sense. And I love the, like how they split the crew. I thought that was really nice as well.
That's a good point. Yeah. Chris brought up a good point here. I love seeing her at the helm again. And what's funny, Chris, is when I was doing some research for this podcast, I found an article that noticed that. And there was a great little thing between the two her actresses and how they are at the helm. So I thought that was really, really cool that you noticed that too, because you weren't the only one. It was nice to see that kind of foreshadowing of what's to come. So, all right, guys. Well, that is our mission reports here. Let's go ahead and wrap things up. We got a few more things to discuss. Okay, so this is Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's Sehlat who ate its tail. Episode 6, season 3. I did want to ask you guys your standout, your cast guest star discussion. And we always like to say, who is your cast or guest star MVP of the episode? Give a quick shout out to who you really enjoyed in this episode. Amy, I'm going to start with you.
All right. Well, this is going to Ethan Peck. His delivery and his chemistry, especially right now, because I feel like they have to reserve and themselves because they know the relationship and what it's building. And so this episode was just so well done, where Spock is just the steady rock and I am giving you the options. You have two options. What is your command, Captain? Just that steady rock. And Kirk learns to depend on it, and he's not going to freak out. But I feel like they both sort of had to pull back because I think they're good friends. But for him to do that and how he played this Spock in this episode, which is so completely different, if you remember other episodes this season. So kudos to him for really getting this introductory relationship between Kirk and Spock.
Well said. Kyle, who's your episode MVP?
It's Paul Wesley. This man got a lot of flack last year in season 2 for his portrayal of Kirk. This man has come in with one of the hardest things to do is to follow up a legend in a character. And not only that, he's not continuing future stories of that character. He's establishing the past and the building of this character. And I think he has taken a huge leap this season with his portrayal of Kirk. He was brilliant in this episode. And I think that if people aren't growing on him as Kirk in what he's doing with Kirk, you're really missing the boat here. And I've got to give all the credit to him in the world. I think getting Shatner's blessing like he did earlier this year really helped take some of the weight off of him. And you can see it in his performance. And he feels a lot less awkward this season than he did last year playing Kirk. Like he's figuring it out and he's getting into Kirk's shoes, but he's also giving us a little bit of different side of Kirk as well, because he's not that experienced veteran Kirk that William Shatner got to be. And I'm really loving what he's doing with it. And he was phenomenal in this episode.
That's my vote too. Paul Wesley was great in this, and he's warming up to me as Kirk, and he did a wonderful job in this one. And I love that we got his little personal log. I love the way this episode opened. I'm like, okay, I see where we're going with this, and it was really, really cool. And just some good moments between his future crew on the Enterprise. I thought was a really good, nice touch for this episode. And Paul Wesley's James T. Kirk, you're growing on me, bro. Really appreciate that. So yeah. All right, guys, let's go ahead and let's wrap things up. Let's get into some final thoughts here. Is a Union Federation podcast, both on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN, discussing Strange New Worlds Season 3. Amy, what are your final thoughts on this episode of the the creature that ate its tail?
And kudos to you for saying that title over and over and over again.
I've been struggling with some of these words, I'll tell you. Jeez.
Well, I said at the top, I just feel that this episode is so good. It is a mini movie. His character arc and what we learn about leadership and the cautionary tale of what we learn about ourselves. And oh my gosh, seeing the crew of our Kirk and Uhura and Scotty start building and Chapel and Spock, like, and so we're getting what I felt like we sort of missed with Enterprise in starting the Federation. Like they sort of missed that. And, you know, now that we know Strange New World has a deadline, there's a cutoff time. So we can take our time and get to the point where we need to be. So I'm hoping that we can breathe and have these wonderful moments of Kirk and his first non-official command, So excellent episode.
Kyle, Chris in the chat, and I thought this was a great point here, says, I think his portrayal of Kirk punches a lot harder after his portrayal of Shatner in the holodeck episode. You're spot on there, Chris. I kind of alluded to that, but I'm glad you crystallized the thoughts there because, he was having fun with that, but then he's like, okay, I got to take this serious. I got to be the real Kirk here. So I thought that was a good point there. Kyle, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
It's episodes like this that reinforce what I believe in, that Strange New Worlds is the best Trek show of the modern era of Trek. I think this show just nails it 9 times out of 10. It does so well as far as live action, respecting the history of Trek. Everybody's biggest fear with this show was that it was going to destroy the history of the original series. It was going to make things go crazy. They've done such a good job of respecting the history of the original series, but still building onto that mythos of it and giving us these characters that we developed and loved so quickly, and seeing these other characters who we know we're going to go on with, but seeing them in a different light and seeing them grow and develop. And it's episodes like this. This episode was one of the most perfectly balanced episodes of Star Trek I've ever seen. I'll be honest with you. It had everything, and it might go down as one of the more significant episodes in the history of Star Trek. Now, because of what happens with Kirk in this episode, and what an episode to have that be, and they did a phenomenal job with it.
Sorry, my immortal brain went off there with the alarm when you
said
mythos.
Sharing a brain sometimes with you is a pain.
You said mythos, the immortal from Highlander. Well said, guys. This episode is, I think this is going to be one of those that people are going to return to and make reference to, and I kind of give it to the writers, just really kind of digging deep in Star Trek mythology and canon, and just picking these little things out, and they are paying attention on this series, and I'm really glad that they are, and they're really doing a good job of highlighting and honoring the original series. For a lot of us that haven't watched those all the time, like Amy and I have, when we rewatch TNG over and over and over again, and celebrated that. And I love that it's giving that love to the original series. And what I like about it, whenever I finish an episode here, it's been dropping into the original series. It automatically starts playing. And so I ended up watching The Cage, which I haven't seen in a long time. And so it was nice to catch up on that. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead and get into subspace signals and wrap things up. That was the extra long subspace signals there. Union Federation podcast you guys are listening to, both part of the FPN and, of course, the BQN. Amy, how can we get a hold of you? You're the founder of the BQN. What's been happening with you over there?
Well, you can find me at BQN Podcasts on Instagram and on Blue Sky. We have a Facebook group, BQN Collective. We have a Discord, but you can find us all. You can also find me in our Facebook group, our Orville. So, yeah.
The Union Federation. Yeah. Facebook.
Thank you. Yeah. Union. I was like, that's not right.
That's cool. All right. Well, my name is Kevin. You can find me on Spartan_Phoenix on all the socials, and Spartan Phoenix on Blue Sky, as well as Fandom Podcast Network is on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and X. Kyle, how can we get a hold of you, sir?
You can find me on X and Blue Sky at AKyleW. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. Of course, all over Facebook as well. Kevin, I want to do a quick shout out real quick, too. If you're listening to this podcast, you're a fan of space science fiction, we got a special thing going on. There's a new show out, Alien Earth, if you're a fan of the Alien franchise. And we're doing a special crossover with our good friend Dan Hadley. He's brought the Space Book to the Fandom Podcast Network for the run of Alien Earth. So please check out those audio podcasts, because we're having a lot of fun covering that show.
Yeah, if you're an Alien fan and you're watching that TV series, it's going to be a limited series, of course, with the episodes. So make sure you check that out, Alien Earth, hosted by Dan Hadley. Give us some extra love, of course, at TeePublic. You can get your Union Federation T-shirts there, even the red shirt version there. That was pretty cool, on all kinds of apparel. This is Union Federation episode 223 here on the Union Federation, and we have been discussing the Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail, Season 3, Episode 6 of Strange New Worlds. Amy, welcome back, first of all. Kyle, you got one last thing?
Well, I'm just going to say, after this episode, we need to re-mind meld, because the connection's definitely on the fritz.
Is that it? Really?
Yeah, pretty much.
That? Welcome back, Amy. We appreciate that you survived Star Trek Las Vegas STLV.
Glad to be back. Thank you.
I want to first of all thank Chris and everyone else that have been watching and viewing. We appreciate that. Please join us live here Monday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern. We're doing these shows live, and we're going to release the audio version the day after as well. Thank you, Chris, again for joining in the chat. We much appreciate that. All right, guys. Well, as always, thank you very much for joining us here in Union Federation Podcast. And as always, we like to say is that live long and prosper. And without a doubt, we are the weirdest ship in the fleet. See you guys next time.